Listening to the guide on the side. I'm Ivan, learning something new every day, through people I meet, books I read, places I go, and conversations I stumble into. I'm here to share those lessons with you. Let's get to the episode. There's something remarkable about walking into virtually any corner shop in the world and seeing Bob Marley's face staring back at you from a poster or t-shirt. Here's a man who died over 4 decades ago, yet his image has become more recognizable than most living celebrities. But when you dig into why Bob Marley commands such universal affection, you realize it's about much more than catchy tunes and dreadlocks. Bob Marley wasn't born into the life that would make him a global icon. He came into the world as Robert Nesta Marley on the 6th of February 1945 in the rural village of 9 Mile in St. Anne Parish, Jamaica. His father, Norval Sinclair Marley, was a white Jamaican of English descent who worked as a plantation overseer, whilst his mother, Cedella Malcolm, was a black Jamaican teenager. This mixed heritage would profoundly shape Marley's worldview and his later message of racial unity. Growing up in Trenchtown, one of Kingston's roughest neighborhoods, young Bob witnessed firsthand the grinding poverty and social inequality that would fuel his music for decades. But here's what's fascinating. Rather than becoming bitter or cynical, these experiences seem to deepen his capacity for empathy and his belief in the possibility of change. The musical journey began in the early 1960s when Marley formed the Wailers with Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer. They weren't overnight sensations, far from it. They struggled for years, recording singles that barely made a ripple beyond Jamaica. But something was brewing in those early recordings, a fusion of ska, rocksteady, and reggae that would eventually capture the world's imagination. What transformed everything was Marley's embrace of Rastafarianism in the mid-1960s. This wasn't just a religious conversion. It was a complete philosophical awakening that would define both his music and his message. Rastafarianism, with its emphasis on African identity, spiritual consciousness, and social justice, gave Marley a framework for articulating what he'd always felt about inequality and oppression. By the 1970s, the Wailers had evolved into Bob Marley and the Wailers, with Bob emerging as the clear frontman. Albums like Catch a Fire and Burnin' began attracting international attention, but it was really Natty Dread in 1974 that announced to the world that something special was happening in Jamaica. But here's where the story gets really interesting. Why did this particular artist, from this small Caribbean island, become so universally beloved? Part of it has to do with timing. Marley's rise coincided with a global awakening about social justice, civil rights, and third world liberation. The 1970s was a decade when people everywhere were questioning authority and demanding change, and Marley's music provided a soundtrack for that yearning. What made Marley different from other protest musicians was how he wrapped his political message in spiritual hope, rather than angry rhetoric. Where other artists might have preached revolution through violence, Marley spoke about revolution through love and consciousness. His famous declaration that none but ourselves can free our minds wasn't just a catchy lyric, it was a philosophy that resonated across cultures and continents. The universality of his appeal also stems from how he managed to be simultaneously specific and global. His songs were deeply rooted in Jamaican experience, the struggles of the sufferer, the reality of ghetto life, the colonial legacy. But they spoke to anyone who'd ever felt marginalized or oppressed. A factory worker in Detroit could hear themselves in Marley's music just as easily as a township resident in Johannesburg. There's something else that sets Marley apart. His authenticity was unquestionable. In an era increasingly dominated by manufactured pop stars and corporate rock, here was an artist who clearly lived every word he sang. His commitment to Rastafarianism wasn't a marketing gimmick. It was a genuine spiritual practice that informed everything from his diet to his politics. When he sang about Babylon falling or Jah providing, you believed he meant it. The 1976 assassination attempt on Marley's life, just before the One Love Peace concert, only reinforced his credibility as someone willing to risk everything for his beliefs. He performed at the concert despite being shot, and famously declared, The people who are trying to make this world worse are not taking a day off. How can I? That kind of moral courage is rare in any era, and it cemented his reputation as more than just an entertainer. But perhaps what really explains Marley's enduring love affair with the world is how he embodied hope without naivety. He wasn't blind to suffering. His own life was marked by poverty, violence, and eventually terminal illness. Yet his response to pain wasn't despair, but an almost transcendent optimism about human potential. Songs like Three Little Birds became anthems, not because they ignored life's difficulties, but because they suggested those difficulties needn't define us. The reggae rhythm itself plays a crucial role in Marley's appeal. There's something hypnotic and healing about that distinctive offbeat, something that seems to slow down time and create space for reflection. In our increasingly frantic world, Marley's music offers something we're all desperate for: a moment of peace, a chance to breathe. His death from cancer in 1981, at just 36, transformed him from a beloved musician into something approaching a secular saint. The timing was cruel, but perhaps inevitable. Marley had been pushing himself relentlessly, touring constantly, spreading his message to anyone who would listen. His final words reportedly were to his son Ziggy: "Money can't buy life." Even in death, he was teaching. What's remarkable is how Marley's influence has only grown in the decades since his passing. His music has become a global language of resistance and hope, played at protests from Hong Kong to Chile, sampled by hip-hop artists, and covered by musicians from every conceivable genre. His image has become shorthand for peace, love, and positive vibration. But there's something deeper at work here. In our current moment of global anxiety, environmental crisis, and social upheaval, Marley's message feels more relevant than ever. His call for unity and diversity, his insistence that love conquers hate, his belief that we can create a better world. These aren't just nice sentiments, they're practical necessities for survival. The commercialization of Marley's image, those ubiquitous t-shirts and posters, might seem to cheapen his legacy, but in a way, it's also testament to how thoroughly his vision has penetrated global consciousness. Every teenager wearing a Bob Marley shirt is, consciously or not, broadcasting a set of values: openness, peace, resistance to oppression, spiritual seeking. What makes this particularly powerful is how Marley managed to create a brand of spirituality that doesn't require you to join any particular church or follow any specific dogma. His Rastafarianism was deeply personal, but his broader message about love, consciousness, and social justice translates across religious and cultural boundaries. He offered a way of being spiritual without being sectarian. Perhaps most importantly, Marley's music continues to do something that's increasingly rare in our polarized world. It brings people together. You can put on a Bob Marley record at almost any gathering, anywhere in the world, and watch people's faces light up with recognition and joy. In an era when we seem to agree on less and less, Marley remains common ground. The man who once said, "My music will go on forever," wasn't just making a prediction. He was stating a fact about what happens when authentic artistic vision meets universal human longing. Bob Marley is famously loved because he understood something fundamental about what we all need: hope that change is possible, music that heals rather than wounds, and the assurance that, despite everything, we're all going to be all right. In the end, that might be the secret to his enduring appeal. In a world that often feels broken, Bob Marley continues to sing us back to wholeness, one song at a time. That is it for today. You've been listening to The Guide on the Side, where I share what I'm learning from people, books, and conversations. I hope something here stays with you, sparks a thought, or opens a door. I'm Ivan, and I'll be back soon with more. Until next time, may your days be full of curiosity, and I'll see you in the next episode.